Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hey Man, It's Okay. I'm your host, Sky, here with just a brief message before we get into this episode. I just want you guys to know that at the end of episode 20 of this season, that will be the end of season 2, and we are going to take a little bit of time before we get into season 3. So please stick with us, as there will be a pretty long break, just a couple of months, while Ryan and I are focusing on some stuff in our personal life. Ryan's focusing on his private practice, and I'm taking some classes. So I'm going to really be focusing on that. So please stick with us, stay around, stay tuned. We have so much cool stuff coming. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website, heymanitsokay.com. And stay with us, please, because season 3 is going to be a killer one. Send us your ideas. Email us. Let us know the things you think we should talk about. Maybe some guests that we should have on season 3. So please stay with us. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the season finale of Hey Man, It's Okay. I'm Sky Bridges, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Ryan Heapy. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hey Man, It's Okay. My name is Ryan Heapy. I am a licensed therapist out of Newport Beach, California, and we have a wonderful episode for you guys. This is kind of a special treat for not only us, but hopefully for you. Sky, what do we got going on?
I thought since it was the season finale of our first season together of Hey Man, It's Okay, as well as the end of season 2 of Hey Man, It's Okay, I thought we would have our guests from this season on, and we're going to have just kind of a general panel discussion about mental health, where we see it going, and how we together can help maybe bridge the gap of destigmatizing this, mental health. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guests one by one, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell you who they are and what they do. So first of all, we're going to start with Global Kristen. Hey, Kristen.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself before we get going today?
Okay, everybody, I am Global Kristen. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and I call myself a spiritual clarity coach. And I am the founder of my signature program that I call Mission I'm Possible, where I teach people to harness the power of belief to live an I'm Possible life.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing, Kristen. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right. Next, we have Coach Bruce. Hey, Coach Bruce.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'll jump right in and just tell you I'm a life coach for ADHD adults, most specifically dads, but I also do work with some ADHD moms as well, and I try to help ADHD people engage in life with passion and purpose.
Awesome. That's killer. Great description. I love your elevator pitch.
Yes.
So
Thank
cool
you so much.
Coach.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm really excited.
All right. Next, we have our resident sports pharmacy doctor, Dr. H.
What's up? How y'all doing? Good to hear from you.
Good. How about you?
Good. Dr. Hussam Hamouche. I'm the owner and operator of Stonebriar Pharmacy in Frisco, Texas. I also host a sports pharmacy podcast where we center around wellness and sports in the pharmacy world.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Killer.
Yep.
Yeah,
glad to have you
absolutely.
back.
We're so excited for this conversation, man. All right. Next, we have Mr. Johnny Nava.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me. My name is Johnny.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Johnny. I'm the least qualified person here, but I have a podcast called Don't Panic, We're All Going to Die, and it focuses on helping people, specifically younger people, deal with anxiety and existential dread. So just bring in a guest each week, have a conversation about it, and I like talking to people about stoicism and postmodernism. So
killer. Yeah, I love it. All right, next we have Eric from mantherapy.org. What's up, Eric?
Hey, Sky. Nice to talk to you again. So, my name's Eric Jones. I'm Director of Partnerships for mantherapy.org. Mantherapy.org is a upstream prevention service for men which uses humor and stereotypes to prevent suicide and increase help-seeking behaviors in men. I'm also the owner and CEO of my company, Eric Jones Consulting. So thank you for having me on.
Killer. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining again. And
Great to have
yeah,
you back, Eric.
and actually, Ryan and Eric, you guys have never met before because I think it was an episode where there was some sort of scheduling conflict and Ryan couldn't make it. So there you guys go. So I'm glad you got to meet now. And then I want to introduce this final guest as he's one of my best friends. He does all of the behind the scenes work for me at Hey Man, That's Okay. All my website development, putting all my episodes up on the website, all the management of that. We have Dylan Faulkner from Stitch Tech and honorary member of Hey Man, It's Okay.
Hey y'all, how's it going? My name is Dylan Faulkner. I realized I just misspelled my own last name. And then this is my field. So I'm the owner of Stitch Tech. It's a technology, education, and consulting company. I like to help small businesses, startups, nonprofits grow and meet their full potential and try to help people's dreams come true with that. As Sky mentioned, he's a really long, close friend of mine. He's practically family. He's a brother to me, and I fully believe in his mission. I'm a big believer in pedagogy and self-care and mental health, and so I'm been really glad to watch all of these episodes progress and just all the cool people we got to meet and just all the backgrounds. I'm looking forward to this episode today, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be killer. Well, that is everybody that we have with us today. We have so many people, and we have such a wide variety of knowledge and backgrounds and stories. And it's kind of good for us to look into how our opinions all match up and how they're all different when it comes to mental health. So I guess I'll start out just by asking a question and then kind of jump in as you have an answer. Where do you see the future of mental health going, like mental health care?
I'll take it. Bruce, I think you were going to try. You were muted. I think you were going to try with me. But I currently see the future of mental health. I think there's a lot more like awareness around mental health now, which is good. And I'm hoping that is really the thing that turns the tide. I think that it is becoming destigmatized as people are like becoming more and more aware of what's going on. And I'm just really hoping that people develop the courage and confidence to pursue mental health care because it's just so life-changing. And I know we all know that, but like there's just, yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
So what I was going to say whenever I was on mute is that I will always answer first because I've always got an answer. I've always got something to say. But I don't want to be that guy if other people have answers. But I do have an answer to this. And I think that the way that the field is moving is that it's kind of moving from a very pick or choose, like either you're a person who is religious and chooses that, or goes to therapy and chooses that, or has a life coach. It's going to be more about building your toolbox to really have all the tools you need to optimize your life and live as your best self. I try to encourage all my clients who see therapy, don't drop your therapist because you're seeing me. They do something different than what I do. Like, I think that if you like them and they've been with you for a while, they know you better than I do, and they have their pulse on something completely different. But together we can optimize, what you're doing in your life to add strategies to more effectively put in, what you learn in your religion, what you learn with your therapist, all of it to help live your life at a more efficient and higher fulfillment level. And I think that's where it's going. I think that's the best way to be able to pick and choose it all.
Can I add to that? So
Please, yeah.
I don't have any expertise in the background. Like Johnny and I are in the same boat here, but when I I've had my own personal history, and Sky and I go way back, and I'm sure hopefully in the future I'd love to be on an episode where I can express myself fully and have conversations with you guys. But when I see people in this kind of thing, we're talking about mental health, people are individuals. And as you were just saying, finding tools for your toolbox, it's not necessarily like this is going to work for you and this is that, because I'm also a religious person, but I've been to therapy. I've used a lot of different tools personally and done my own research. And so, when you take those personality tests and they show you where you are on those personality tests, rarely is it that in any of those sections, you don't have anything there. You're always a piece of everything. And so it's just a matter of you're finding your personal wavelength for every part of you as an individual. And it's completely custom for everyone through our lives. And I think it's not about like finding the one size fits all, but learning about all the pieces that help you. And I think that you kind of hit the nail there with that, Coach Bruce. So.
I might add a actual sort of personal and logistical kind of piece to all this. The pandemic, I think, really moved kind of the needle as far as being able to get access to help. And, initially there were these two companies called Talkspace and BetterHelp. And while I think they do a good service, it's kind of like abbreviated therapy. And just out of the last year or two, there's been about 4 different companies that have come across that are making the accessibility and the ease to find a therapist that much quicker. A couple of these are like Grow, Path, or Alma. And it literally takes 3 to 5 minutes. I've used this for the last 6 months, and you just enter in your insurance information, your availability. It asks you a few questions: male, female, what do you want to work on? And literally within 5 minutes, you've booked an appointment with a very well qualified therapist. And so I'm actually looking into being a part of one of these programs, and think it's just really cool as far as people being able to get the access that they need.
I love that. To add on to what Coach Bruce and Dylan were also saying, I think that one of the biggest takeaways that I have is that mental health is what you need it to be. And I think that people are afraid of what they need it to be. And that's where all of the stigma and everything comes in. Because as long as you're doing what you need to do for your mental health, it gets to be exactly what you need it to be. And just like you guys were saying, you get to pick from the toolbox. You get to pick from this plethora of whatever it is that you need to make yourself feel good, to make your mind feel healthy and free. So yeah, I think that's definitely where we're heading. I'm hoping to be a part of that movement that continues to nurture that and, fuel the fire for that.
I also want to go back to something, what Ryan just said. I think it's really important to note that as bad as the pandemic was, I don't think that toolbox would have really been you wouldn't have been able to build it like you can without that pandemic happening. Like most of my clients I see online, it's a remote thing. I can help somebody who lives in a completely different country because it's normalized now to get help online. 5 years ago, that would have been you have an online life coach, therapist, whatever. It's are you a shut-in? Are you some sort of xenophobe? And now it's no, it's just convenient. If I have a life coach, a therapist, some sort of nutrition or health coach, that would be 3 separate trips a week that I would have to make out of my house through traffic. If I have a full-time job, that's basically impossible. Now that's possible because you can just do it from the comfort of your home, and I love that.
Yeah. I mean, just look at what we have going on today. I don't think this would have happened 2-3 years ago. And we've got a panel of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, 8 people, all here to lend a hand and give their own expertise in different fields in order to benefit our mental health. And it's pretty cool.
That's pretty special. It's funny, Coach Bruce, you talk about, doing things online and seeing people. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a whole slew of people in Japan that Ryan and I talked about before called the hikikomori. And they're men who have been in isolation for so long that they've started to make videos of female Japanese girls just staring at the camera so that they can get used to eye contact again. And I really hope that that's not where we're headed. I hope that we're moving back towards in-person stuff because, yes, I think we learned a lot during the pandemic. We had to learn how to take care of ourselves, and we had to learn how to do it from isolation. So now how do we extend that going out into the public again?
One thing that I can only speak on the pharmacy portion of this. So one of the things that even after our episode, Sky and Ryan, when I was with you guys, I really had to take back to my life and my work is that what is it that we can do differently, both as a business owner and I would consider myself, I do a lot of stuff with the community and just a community leader. And one of the things that, for the future is a lot of pharmacies are starting to go towards a more holistic wellness approach as well. So for us, we recently started a program called United Wellness, where we have the 7 pillars of wellness all into one program where we teach people how to live better, live their life more well. And one of those big things in there is the psychosocial portion of it and making sure that patients are understanding that, hey man, it's okay. Literally, it's sometimes you're going to feel this way. And it's changing the way that we do things, especially in the pharmacy world, rather than just medicating someone with an SSRI or giving the patient the Xanax that they're looking for. So it's looking at a more holistic approach towards wellness.
I like looking more into holistic things than into, like big pharma stuff, because I feel like not only usually is it, cheaper, thankfully, it's usually a lot healthier for us. So I think that's really cool. What you're doing there with all of that information.
Yeah, Dr. H, I've been practicing therapy for 7-8 years now. And the conversations that I have in session, well, I just know 3 years ago, I don't think I was ever talking to people about getting their testosterone levels checked, talking about what kind of supplements they were taking, whether they were getting outside or even just getting sleep or good nutrition. And so, and these are really like just the fundamentals of good living, like you said. And so just the vast amount of information and getting people, like you, Dr. H, out there who are talking about some of these things that, I'm definitely not trained in, the physiological aspect of some of these things. So, it's so cool to see this huge collaboration of, because it takes so much effort in a lot of ways to have good mental health.
1,000%.
Yeah. And it's okay if you have to take medications. I'm just saying some people need it. So I'm here if you need it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can't really speak too much on the professional side of things because it's not my job. I don't want to give any type of advice on that side of things. But I guess just from the perspective of a layman who does not involve himself in a lot of stuff, I think one of the things that I'm curious about is kind of the alternative treatments that are kind of emerging in the 21st century. I mean, I think that the West in general is very logic and reason based in their approach to dealing with problems. It's why we've kind of put science on this pedestal and have used it to make medications and have turned therapy and to psychology to natural science. But I am really curious about, more Eastern approaches. I think a lot of people have benefited from Eastern philosophy. We saw that a lot with a lot of Alan Watts writing, in the 70s, being introduced to it. But I think even now, John Hopkins is doing some really interesting research on the effects of psychedelic mushrooms on people's mental health and the way that it has alleviated depression. So I think just being more open-minded and pluralistic about the ways that we're dealing with mental health is something that I'm personally really excited about for the future.
So, the way I explain mental health to clients is that it's like these three arenas. Okay. One of them is sort of like the chemical level. What's our physiological doing? Are we getting enough serotonin, et cetera? And that's where kind of like Dr. H comes in. And then we have sort of like the social behavioral, and that's where the coaches, I think, come in. And then finally we have like story and perspective. And Johnny, that's like your realm. And so, don't discount yourself here because I think that story, change your story, change your life is very real. And the way we kind of shape our world with narrative, can do a lot for us. So
definitely it's fiction,
And I'm right there with you, Johnny. Yeah, you're not alone, Johnny. I'm the similar. Like I've been to therapy. I've seen 3 therapists in my life, and I grew up with a mother and grandmother who were all in holistic medicine, who made their own home remedies. My grandmother still makes these salves for me that I use on my sores and my scabs and stuff. And it gives you a nice perspective of things. The reason that I love mental health and things and what Sky's been getting into with all this is because of my own personal journey through therapy and through medicines. And it's really nice to see other people's perspectives, and your own life story is what gives you the empathy to care enough to understand and help educate others about it, which is what you're doing, which is awesome.
Eric, I saw that you unmuted.
Yeah, no, I just kind of wanted to tie it all together, if that's okay. Because what's interesting is I worked in the public health arena, specifically around veteran suicide prevention and men's health, that sort of thing. And what's so interesting to me is seeing, you asked about the future of mental health. And what I'm starting to see from that data-driven perspective specifically is that we're starting to see actual change. And whether that be through therapy or pharmaceutical or someone using Eastern medicine or practices like Stoicism, or finding a life coach that can help them. The thing that I see that's most important is that we're starting to have these conversations. And so working in that veteran space, that veteran suicide prevention space for the better part of 15 years now, I was in the ground floor of that 15 years ago and seeing that the work that people were doing, the work that therapists were doing and life coaches were doing and pharmaceuticals were doing to try and help veterans. And now that we've been working on it for the better part of 15 years, we're starting to really see, I don't know if y'all know this, but last year was the first year we saw a reduction in veteran suicide in 2 decades.
Oh, wow. That deserves a round of applause. That's amazing.
So, and it was a 10% reduction. So the thing is that I believe, and it's just a belief, there's no real science behind it, but I believe that us all having these conversations together and bringing together that holistic approach that we were talking about, we're starting to see the benefits of that in that community. And I'm hoping that as we're having these more open conversations with all of us, we'll start to see that on the population as a whole. So thank you.
I absolutely love, by the way, that there are so many men in here who are willing to talk about their feelings and talk about mental health. And then we have Kristen, who has, a different perspective, being a female. And I'm so happy to have all of you guys. We come from a very diverse set of backgrounds, stories, and, tying something together actually that Dr. H may know about. Are you guys aware that they're starting to say that they can change PTSD into PTS now because of the use of psilocybin and other hallucinogenics, they're able to cure PTS. And do any of you guys know about that? Have you heard about that at all?
Yeah, I had a guy on my podcast that was he served in Iraq. He did several tours through Iraq and Afghanistan, and now he actually is in Colombia, and he does. What he works with is what's it called? Ayahuasca. Does he ayahuasca retreats for veterans?
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
And so that's what he does now full time, and it's veteran focused. So he talks a lot about the impact it has on them. I can't speak specifically for it because I'm not a veteran, but I do know that psychedelics specifically have been really helpful in treating PTSD and depression for veterans.
Going back to what Eric was saying,
That's
how he was just, Eric, you were mentioning about us having the conversation is really what is making the difference. And I just want to salute everyone on the podcast for creating the platforms for people to speak, because that's what's allowing this to continue to happen, because people have been in the past holding so much in because there was no space. There was no space for grief. There was no space for talking. There was no space for anything involving negative feelings, really. So no one had an outlet. So I'm just really proud of all of us for stepping into our greatness and providing the platforms for people to speak, because that alone is a therapeutic effect. So I'm just really grateful to see all of these faces, knowing what you guys are putting out into the world, and to be a part of it feels really good.
I do think that psilocybin paired with therapy has
that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
The best efficacy and results when it comes to treating depression and PTSD. My only fear is that it doesn't become easily accessible, and that the pharmaceutical companies somehow, will want to keep their profits.
They got to make their money somehow, man.
Keep pushing Prozac and all their other antidepressants and all that thing when, maybe all you really need is 2 days of a good psilocybin journey and, a few sessions of therapy afterwards. Because it really is remarkable, kind of the results that they're getting.
One thing that I think that's always, Dr. Wright, I think it's always really important to think about in these spaces is that there are a million tools for a million different problems out there. So I hope that we find that the people that need that find that and it helps them, and the people who use every other venue that helps them too. I think that it's really important for us to kind of working in that veteran space. I would get a phone call almost once a week in my last job and said, I know what we need to do to stop veteran suicide. And I'd sit there and I'd go, that's great, man, but you don't. Because everybody thinks they know what the answer is. And the answer is so much more nuanced than it always has been, and it always will be.
I mean, I appreciate that because my stepfather suffers from severe PTSD. He was EOD, he was bomb squad, he got blown up. And when I was young and they first got married, I experienced his triggers firsthand when it came to his children and certain things. But over the years, and this was over, I'm going to say 14 years now, I think, over the years, I saw the full arc of his progression and then digression. And the progression was always when it was talked about, when it was shared, when it was openly discussed and being aware of it and having to explain it to family and friends who had to witness it. And then the digression during COVID, when you're isolating and you're by yourself and you don't have a support system, people to talk to. And I think it's really important to make the information publicly available, but also it's just okay to talk about. And when you have the episodes here, like I will send links every day because I don't know what will work, but I'm hoping that at least it's something else to try, and you're always making the effort to be better and to try to grow and to heal.
I mean, I was just looking at a random article from NYU when they're talking about post-traumatic stress disorders and use of psychedelic drugs. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times with these, acid, MDMA, there's that chance of a bad trip, right? Like that's a possibility. Like, do you guys know anything about prevalence as far as like how often that happens, or?
I think it's about the purpose
Perfect. There we
behind
go.
it, but Ryan is trained, so maybe I should just be quiet.
Bad trips can happen. There is some sort of cliche though that there's no such thing as a bad trip, just a difficult one. And when you're under the care of a physician, an anesthesiologist, when people are monitoring your vitals, that make sure that you're safe. I believe in listening to some of the researchers who put together these studies at Johns Hopkins. They did say that there was one woman who did try to jump through a painting, but they were, they were there to stop her from that. Yeah. And actually the drug that's the worst, or at least has the highest correlation to like a bad reaction is actually marijuana. And it can really trigger schizophrenia in a lot of people, especially young adults. But yeah, I think, there's a lot of times these bad trips or difficult trips are actually maybe, as long as you're under the care of, some qualified clinicians, they're often, what we need to kind of work through a lot of times.
Yeah.
So
I just found it interesting when, like specifically for marijuana, I can understand how, there's some strains from a plant that activate more of one of the different receptors other than the THC receptors in the brain. The cannabinoid receptors, there's 18 of them within the brain. So each strain is going to affect one differently. And based off of that is how someone will react to it. So I think that's where I can kind of see, like, if you got, indica and all this other stuff, it could really change how you react to it. And everyone's going to be different, like you mentioned. Like, everyone's going to have a different reality. But for someone like me, where I already have issues where I'm anxious 80, 90% of the time, it wouldn't work well for me because I feel like it'll just be revved up a little bit too much. You see what I'm saying? So I can see the clinical appropriateness of this, but it doesn't feel like it could be used universally. Maybe I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm wrong.
Well, my thought on this is it's kind of buying into the process as it is with therapy, with medication, with, spiritual. You have to have a certain amount of faith and be willing to trust the process, because if you were going on a trip and you have anxiety going in, the trip is going to be worse than it had to. And that's the same with going into a life coaching session or going into therapy. If you go in reserved and not willing to fully buy into a therapy session and you're not fully honest, that therapist cannot help you to the best of their ability, period. You have to be willing to buy into the process to get the most out of it. And so if you're thinking about trying this process, as Ryan said, if you have some access to certified clinicians who are going to help you through this process. Like, I know about, tripping from my college days. I didn't personally do it, but I had a lot of friends who really tried to get me into doing it. And everybody, it was all universally agreed, is just having people around you that care enough to make sure that you're okay and to, protect you from the outside influences that create a bad trip. There's going to be difficult trips, like Ryan said, if you are not prepared for what is inside you to kind of face those demons. But if you are willing to buy into the process and understand that you're trying to work through some difficult stuff, there's some really great growth to be had from everybody I've ever talked to who's done it. The only reason why I haven't is because my wife would kill me. she's absolutely against doing any kind of drugs, or else I would have tripped a long time ago.
So actually, when I did my training, we had to guide somebody through the experience, and we were guided through the experience. And the guy that I helped through, we had this nice, beautiful individual room, a zero gravity chair, the music, a projector. I'm there taking notes, and he felt absolutely no judgment, no shame. We were swimming on the floor together. It was just this absolutely one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had in my life to kind of help somebody through this. Then the next day when I did my experience, I wanted to change it up a little. And so I did mine in the group room, which there were 6 other people who were all journeying at the same time. And I was also best friends with the director of the clinic. And then, through her, I met a whole bunch of other people. And so I had like 5 or 6 people there that were all wanting to see what I was going to go through. And so while I won't say it was a bad trip, I mean, I wanted to hide and just go into the fetal position. And I don't think I got the most out of it while I was feeling kind of just under this judgment and shame. So.
Yeah, and that's something that you were walking in with before you ever even started your trip. You're like, oh my God, all these people I know are going to be watching me do this trip. It's just going to magnify it. If you have those doubts going in, I would say don't do it until you face some of those fears about doing the process. And then, because, it's going to be really difficult to be able to manage that as, you're tripping balls.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say that the only reason I really bring up psychedelics maybe in these types of conversations with guys like you is because, I can't really bring the medical side of things. And I'm like, at least for me, I've been very depressed before. And I've tried therapy, and I've tried medicine, and I've tried psychedelics, and I've tried stoicism. And all those actually worked, took out great. But it was like a combination of those. You kind of have to get the cocktail right. So I'm not endorsing psychedelics as like a catch-all solution for anything at all. But I will say that, just judging from the conversations that have been had in this podcast, I think I probably have done a lot more than you guys. So, I can definitely attest, at least for myself, when we're talking about having a bad trip, I think a lot of that has to do with trauma, specifically childhood trauma, maybe stuff that hasn't been dealt with, as I'm sure you guys have probably, had a lot of experience talking with your own clients about. I think the thing about tripping is sometimes those are things that we bury very deeply within us. And when we're tripping, it makes it so it's like right here in our faces. And when it's something that we're not prepared to deal with, that can be very overwhelming. At the same time, a lot of growth has to do with confronting those traumas and learning how to deal with them and to move forward. So those aren't always bad trips. Aren't always bad trips. Sometimes you can have a bad trip that's just a bad trip, and that's part of the risk that you take. But that's just my 2 cents as someone who's definitely had some good, medium, and bad trips in my life.
Let's also remember real quickly that whenever you watch those pharmaceutical commercials, that there's the risk of suicide, depression, diarrhea, your arms falling off, all this different stuff. So weighing that against the risk of a bad trip, it's kind of just be mindful of the fact that everything has its risk. Meeting with a life coach has its risk. What if they're an asshole? Like, what if they tell you that you suck? Like, that's a valid risk. Like, you're always risking something when you're opening yourself up to these experiences to grow. And the beauty of it is, if you have the right perspective to see that any discomfort that you go through is growth. Like, that's how I look at it. Is like, if I go through something that ends up being bad, I'm going to learn something from that that's going to make me a better, stronger person.
I think another thing, like even going into like
For sure.
your intention. I think Sky was talking about this, like, like if you go into it, like depending on what your intention is when you go in could really help you in the process. I think, and I don't know a lot about this topic, but I'm thinking like if I were to do something like this, like having a plan for when I got out of it would be really comforting for me, so that whatever I was experiencing in a trip, I would know that like, it's okay, I'm going to work through this. I have a plan. I know I'm going to talk to this person. And like that would just, knowing I had that on the other end, whatever the other end of the trip is, just that it's on both ends. It's going in with a good intention and then also having the comfort and care that I need, that I know would help me like on the other end to just like have it in a nice, safe bubble.
Well, that's actually probably the most important piece there, Kristen, is, when you do this, it's initially, it's kind of the 3 steps. You set the intention, and you're working with somebody who's going to help, keep, when you go through the experience, that person will, keep bringing that intention back and keep working, out that goal. And then what I think is the most important piece is this third piece, which is the integration of what did you, maybe you saw something differently, or your thinking was changed dramatically, especially for people with like treatment resistant depression who, have this like myopic tunnel vision of just what life is. And then you go through this journey and it shakes that maybe to the core, but that lasted anywhere from an hour to 6 hours. And then if you just do that alone, a lot of times that's all you're going to get out of it is maybe an interesting hour to 6. But, when you add the either coach therapy side to it at the end, that integrates, day after day or week after week, that's where kind of the real magic happens. And that's what they're doing in some of these studies. Unfortunately, a lot of the ketamine psychedelic clinics that are available and open right now are often just run by psychiatrists, anesthesiologists, and I think like psych NPs. And for the most part, people are just going in and spending a lot of money for, a lot of times they're packaged at like $4,500 for 6 sessions. And you get these 6 great sessions, but then, and I've worked with clients who have just gone and done that, and yet I wasn't part of that. And so I don't really know, kind of how to integrate that with them. Yeah, so just like you're saying, that's kind of the most important piece is how do we take that experience and use it to transform your life later.
Before we get moving too far forward, I do want to say, please make sure to consult your doctor or physician before making the decision to do any of this yourself. Please talk to someone who has a medical degree or somebody who's helping you through life before you try any of this, please.
Yeah, we don't recommend you taking recreational drugs at all points, right?
And I would say don't do any of it, just yourself.
Yes. Okay.
Don't get me started. I have it memorized, man. They put it in our brain during school.
We need that Big Pharma disclaimer scroller from Big Pharma for you.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing,
You have the voice for it, though. Listening to you talk, I can just fall asleep to you, Dr. H. That's amazing. It's a great thing. It's going to get some more listeners.
Absolutely.
I'll learn in my sleep. No, anyways. I just wanted to both validate that because when I'm thinking of, so I'm not the type of person to do any sort of recreational drugs. I don't smoke. I mean, alcohol is my drug of choice, but it's more of I don't take prescriptions. I'm more of just keeping things real with me. I have had a trip before. The wrong brownie powder roll with an accidental THC dosage that was 10 times higher than it should have been, and I'm the type of person to where I face things head on, even begrudgingly, because I know I have to get through that. And which I really validate Coach Bruce, and it's like this is something that's happening. What is happening, and how do I get past this, and how can this help me move forward? And I bring that up because I have a family member, and that when you said it's about intention, I was here thinking it's about like almost your disposition. Like some people see our glass half empty, half full. But intention kind of makes a lot more sense to me too, because it does hit that point Johnny was talking about with the childhood trauma and things you don't even remember, you never dealt with. It took me my entire life to deal with my past, and it's still a process. You never really completely finish that. And then I have a family member whose mother happened to commit suicide, and he's never dealt with it. And he eventually got into drugs and shrooms and things of choice, and he jumped out a window. And like it's one of the things like, hey, definitely never do anything alone. But he had a lot of stuff he never dealt with and never talked about, and didn't know it was okay to talk about. I've had family members who I also, and I'm just saying this to get more opinions out there because I love hearing what other people have to say. But I have a family member whose point of choice is when you go through a trauma, like a family death, they want you to sit down and they want to force you to cry. It's like, you need to sit there and you need to cry and you need to deal with this right now. And I never liked that because I wasn't like me. It takes me years to process those things before I finally feel those emotions. But that was just my 2 cents. So, I appreciate what you're saying about the intention behind it. And then also going back to what you get out of it. is both things you've never really dealt with in the past as well as been aware of, or like kind of your intention for doing it.
And I
like,
think
is it
that's
an
very
escape
important.
or is it like a healing?
Well, for somebody like
I don't know.
like Dylan, who doesn't, look into, psychedelics or any kind of like THC or anything for therapy, what are some other therapies that you guys have found out there that you have been recommending to people or telling people about that you really like?
Oh man, I got to talk about what I've been doing. I've learned that this never stops, ever. It's always something happening in there that sometimes they come up with like the most brilliant ideas, especially like in the middle of the night. Or it could be just like something completely off the walls. So I started journaling. I just started writing shit down. I started writing stuff down like to make it seem okay, good. All right.
You can swear. It's okay.
Some of the stuff I write is complete nonsense, but still, it's like it's easy to brain dump. And having my journal next to me, which I have right here next to me, really has helped me the most. I love journaling.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
I'll jump in, and what I talk about the very most to all my clients is like I made a workbook about it because I think it's that important. Is defining what is important to you, like kind of it involves it's kind of somewhat journaling, like doing a brain dump, kind of getting everything out that's in your head on paper, and then kind of going back and categorizing what kind of stuff you think about. Is it a value? Is it a belief? Is it a doubt? Is it an intrusion? Or and kind of just labeling all that stuff and then doing it again, but like guiding towards what you actually want for your life, and then doing it again, and then evaluating that as well, and then using those things to then define what your core values and beliefs are. And that to me has been the single most important tool I've been able to like formulate and give to people, because then you have something that helps you stop like wavering between emotional highs and lows. Kind of like the stoicism thing, but, a little different. That is like, I think that the emotion is very important, but it needs to not be the driver of the decisions. It needs to be an informer of how you feel about things, but the driver of the decision should be your core values and beliefs and the goals you base off of them. And then I mean, you're still going to have choices. That's where you allow the emotion to come in. It's like, well, this one makes me angry. Well, of course you don't want to do that thing that makes you angry, but you don't want to also not do something that's important to you because you're pissed off. And that's whatever, like I found so much growth in the clients that I work with. One lady I started working with about a month ago, she was returning off of a 9-month layoff, and we kind of started working on this process, and she returned to work, and she's like, I'm so glad that we defined how important it is for me to figure out my financial future, because I would have quit 3 days in. 3 days in, I was ready to clock my ticket and be done for, because I forgot how stressful it was to be at work. But because we defined that, this is helping me get to this point, I was able to say, okay, I'm doing this for a reason, and calm down and let my emotion kind of check out, and then make a smart decision. And that's it. I just love helping people through that process.
That's really great,
That's
man.
Awesome.
So my soon-to-be stepson came in to get his charger for his switch cord, and then unplugged the Wi-Fi router to plug in his switch. That's why I jumped off there. Sorry about that. No, so talking about the therapies that I've been doing, I'm actually getting broke up with by my therapist that I've had for like 2.5 years. It's not broke up with. It's funny. We keep using these joking terms. It's like I'm graduating therapy, where like I was doing 2 times a week, and then she took me down to 1 time a week, and then she's like, you don't really seem to have these problems. Let's go to every 2 weeks, and now we're down to like the last one. She was like, all right, let's go to once a month. I'm like, you're breaking up with me. I see what's happening here. But the truth is what I found that helped me a lot was doing EMDR. It really was kind of the catalyst that started to change it. And once I started to realize those physical things that I was having happen in my body, where I was able to recognize that physical trigger whenever I was feeling something. So I get this whenever I start feeling anger towards something or hurt, I get this like tightness in my chest. And so now that I feel that happening, my body's telling me, hey, you're having a physical response to an emotional reaction right now. And then I'm able to dissect that. And I actually use the RAIN method from there to kind of take a deep breath. Yeah, I don't want to sit here and go over all of it. But, basically you take a deep breath and recognize and sort of go through why you're having that emotion. And now I'm able to not do destructive behaviors. So just working with an actual, a therapist.
That's awesome.
And going through that whole journey has been super helpful for me.
Eric, that's awesome. I'm just going to give a quick background for people who both EMDR and RAIN. Two things that, again, I'm trained in, but also absolutely love, and they worked for me, which is why I went and got trained in it. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a trauma-based therapy that's really in a league of its own because it has very little to do with actually talking about anything. What we do is you get the brain to go back and forth and have this bilateral stimulation, and that can be done either with like your eyes going back and forth like this, which was kind of the original method, or tapping, holding buzzers, looking at like this little light bar, anything to get your brain to go back and forth. We actually don't know why it works. There's a couple different theories out there. One, that it replicates REM sleep, and we really don't even know what REM sleep does either. We just know kind of like it's the most important part of the sleep process. But we think it kind of reprocesses or kind of compartmentalizes, packages events in the right way. And so traumas kind of happen, and we have our fight or flight that comes up, and they kind of get locked sort of, in this very sort of triggering space. And so EMDR is the brain's way of repackaging and again, reprocessing. And kind of the most important part of getting past trauma is to be able to look at that same event in a different light. And a lot of times with EMDR, we identify the overarching negative cognition, which is often like, I'm not safe, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough. And then after, getting the brain, we activate that trauma, get it to go back and forth, and then put the opposite spin on it, that I am good enough, I am safe, I am loved. So EMDR is fabulous. It looks a little woo-woo from the outset, but man, I had a therapist that I couldn't relate to at all whatsoever. English wasn't her first language. I mean, we were drastically different people, but I probably got more out of the 5 sessions of EMDR that I did with her than almost any other therapy. And then finally, RAIN is sort of a meditation that's, I think, was invented by this wonderful mindfulness guru, Tara Brach. And I believe it's recognize, allow, investigate, and then nurture. We nurture that soft spot. So, Eric, thank you so much for bringing those up. Yeah, they are powerful tools.
I love learning new tools for my tool belt. It's great. I'll have to look more into those.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about those on here. We'll have to dive into those. Maybe have you back, Eric, and really talk about your experience and what you got out of it.
So what I've heard was the journaling, which I do when I can digitally, and it does help get your thoughts somewhere solid and real to analyze. And then what Coach Bruce was talking about, I forget what specifically he called it, but it was like analyzing those and classifying them and everything there. And then the ASMR, which I saw the episode on that, and that was pretty cool. They brought it up before. I'm just curious because I've therapy didn't work for me in the past. I've had bad experiences. But for me personally, between the journaling, it's been like my close, trusted friends and learning sympathy and empathy and understanding of why I feel the way I feel and how, and like try to like, okay, what is the cause of this? But also for others that stimulate that. Like, it's like everyone like goes to like their parents, like, oh, well, my father was this way. It's like, yes, but why was my father that way? It's like, I understand it now. And like listening to stories and trying to remove myself from the equation is usually how I deal with like my own issues. Where when I'm in struggling, like this makes me angry. Like, why does this make me angry? It's because I feel this way about it. Well, why do I feel that way about it? It's like, because my father made me feel that way about it, and he felt that way because his father. Like, well, that's just silly. It's like so just breaking it down into little pieces, and the journaling has really helped with that. And having friends who care enough to sympathize and empathize and ask follow-up questions and then just listen and then ask even more follow-up questions. That's been my therapy. Sky's been a huge help with that. My other buddy in Philadelphia and stuff. But no, it's nice to hear all these other ideas.
one thing, Dylan, and then I would love to pass this off to somebody else. But talking about, I heard you say in there that you've tried different therapy and haven't found the right person, or it didn't work for you. I've probably had 20 different therapists. Many of them I didn't see for more than a session, and then I've probably had over 300 sessions with my current therapist. So I also held the beliefs that therapy wasn't for me, and then I found the right therapist. So don't give up yet, sir.
That is great advice. Finding the right therapist is like finding the right partner when you're dating. It's okay to try different therapists. Just because you locked into one doesn't mean that's the one that you have to be with forever. It's okay to date and get to know them and make them, get you something expensive.
Yeah, a lot of people think that accreditation that you get, you become a therapist, it says that you're a good one, and it's not. It just means that you passed the test, and you just you got the certificate. What is the word? Certification. You got the certification. That's great. That's the first step. But actually being, for one, the right therapist for somebody is a whole other thing. And then being a good therapist, just period, means that you do your homework, you care about people, you take the extra step. Like Eric was talking about, his therapist graduated him. How many times do you hear about that? You don't. Not very often. Most of the time, it's kind of like for the pharmaceutical industry, they want to just keep seeing you and helping you enough to where you keep your head above water and you don't die. And, that's good. But they want to keep getting paid from you, so they don't want to help you too much. And there are those who actually care enough about people to really take their job seriously and try to help people grow to where they don't need help. They're able to start taking care of themselves, and maybe a little maintenance. And I hope that should be the goal with all people in the growth industry, is that we want to help you get to a point where you don't need me anymore. You don't need Ryan anymore. Maybe you want to. Maybe you want to continue on just to, as maintenance, to tighten a few nuts and bolts every now and then, but you're good on your own. And that, I love to hear that.
I just want to add one last thing. And when we go through grad school and, we've got to get our bachelor's, our master's, and then do these 3,000 hours and then take this big licensing exam, which I failed the first time, in this 7-year process, right? At least that's what it took me. We look in grad school, and I think amongst many therapists, we have this tendency to look down on coaches. And really, through this podcast and through meeting you guys have just as much to offer. And me personally, I've used a couple coaches just this year, and I can't tell you how impactful they have been as well. And so I really appreciate the work that you guys do. And with all of you that I've talked to on here, I've been more than impressed with the work you guys do and how knowledgeable you guys are. So, yeah, but same with coaches. There's probably coaches that put that name next to
1,000%
that title next to their name after 5 minutes, and then there's guys like you who have developed courses and worked with a lot of people and helped a lot of people as well.
Yeah, it's anybody in any field can just throw the name on their door and not do the work to try to be great at it, but especially whenever it comes to people who are dealing with your mental health, I would say keep trying until you find somebody who actually feels right. If you're not sure if it feels right, then it doesn't. If it's not right, there 1,000% you will feel whenever somebody is right for you. You won't doubt it. You won't say I don't know. You'll feel it. You'll feel the connection. You'll say, wow, this is what it likes to have somebody who really understands what I'm trying to gain out of this process and is going to help me get there. And just keep trying until you find that, and try other stuff. It doesn't have to be just a life coach or just spiritual wellness. Hop around, try some different things. Hopefully, you find a whole team of people who are willing to put your health and wellness at the top of their list and really help you get there. No, just date around. Just date around. It's okay. We're not going to coach shame anybody. You just take your time.
Well, like Sky said, it's building a relationship with people. You're building a relationship. I'm not best friends with everyone. I'm not even close with everyone. I like some people, but then there's people like Sky and the people who I love and care about and cares about me deeply. And those are the people who I look for in my life. And those are the ones that are the most impactful for me, the ones who truly care. And everyone here cares about people, the things they're doing in their field. And that's why we're all here talking about it. It's great.
The other thing I wanted to add after the journaling, which has been probably my single biggest eye opener, like I've had like my biggest aha moments with journaling, but like outside of that has been the action of me like strategically choosing who I allow myself to be surrounded by. That's been like a major game changer for me, because it's like you can do all the mindset work in the world, but if you're surrounded by like a shitty circle of like naysayers or negative people, like all the mindset work in the world is not going to help you. Like it's eventually it's going to take over and you're going to start feeling like they feel. And so making like big decisions for myself, getting a divorce and separating myself from like negativity and like moving into a positive like space, like that's major for mental health. Or like changing this, or like setting boundaries, or like, you know, just all of the things that protect my mental health have helped, because it's like you can have the awakenings with the journaling, but you need something to sustain it. You need like the maintenance. And it's like your environment is like, I don't think that the majority of like my clients or the people out there that like know about me, I don't think that they understand the importance of their environment. I think that they think that it's not as important as it is. And it's a huge game changer. It's like the other one. That's probably the other biggest thing that I've done, like journaling and changing my environment. Like that
is great information to have.
My two quotes and creeds that just makes me think of is that I remind myself of daily is the first is that nature abhors a vacuum. And the wise man told me that, like, if you don't fill the void, something's going to fill it for you, and it's not necessarily going to be good for you. And the second one is nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you want something to change, you're going to have to do something. And so there is that void in that vacuum. You got to do something. And those are the two things that I tell myself daily.
I just went live about this today, and I was talking about how a lot of people don't want to make those big changes like that, because particularly when it comes to like relationships that have been like dragging them down, or like have been so negative or toxic or traumatic, it's like, because they've been around for so long, if that person decides like, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to leave this relationship, or I'm going to like not allow this anymore. That reality sometimes is so overwhelming for them, because they have to accept the fact that they waited for so long to make the decision. And it's like they keep holding out hope, like, well, if they really change, then that means I didn't waste all this time in my life. If they really change, and they like keep playing this thing, like not wanting to be wrong, because if they're wrong about staying for so long, then it's like they have to accept the fact that they have accepted shitty circumstances for so long, and they don't want to believe that they have done this. It's like so hard for them. And so it's just like the self-love, the self-forgiveness, the knowing that like no time was lost. Everything that you feel like you lost will be restored to you. Like those things have to be like nurtured in their mindset, or else they'll just feel like they can't ever get the time back, and they just stay. They keep staying, and it's sad.
Can I jump in and add something to that? I had somebody come on my podcast. Her name's Marilyn Pennyfeather, and she's a secure attachment and narcissism something. Like she just knows all the stuff about this stuff. And she, like I was talking about how I'd done some messed up stuff in my past and I'm much better now and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, but do you have grace for yourself in the past? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, do you forgive yourself for having made those mistakes? And what you're talking about right now is an extension of that, how people are so mad at themselves for having done something dumb for so long that they're unwilling to change it now. I was willing to change it now, but I was still carrying all the baggage from having made that mistake. So I couldn't really grow like I needed to until I was like, that's still me. That person who made those mistakes that I'm saying is, was a dumb piece of shit. That was me. So I have to forgive that person for making the dumb mistake and have grace and say, like, you didn't know better. And it's okay. Like, I forgive you for, keeping me in a relationship with my mom that was narcissistic and toxic for my entire life. I'm like, it's okay. You didn't know. You didn't know better. And once I started to forgive myself for being hurt and hurting, but being aware, taking accountability, that's whenever my growth really started to skyrocket, because I didn't realize how much baggage I was carrying around with me for being mad at myself for not having realized sooner. So yeah, that is a huge, huge, like, major key.
add to the watch list. There's a TED Talk that's guilt versus shame, and it touches on that real well, Coach Bruce. Yeah.
Well, I want to let you guys know that because of, in this conversation of therapy and growing and,
Feels good.
always trying to be better, it's because of each and every one of you, and especially you, Ryan. I actually have started to get further education in the mental health field.
Yeah, thanks for having us back on.
I got a scholarship from work to take the class to be a certified Enneagram practitioner, because I'm hoping that maybe I can add some letters to the end of my name to feel a little bit more legit. But I want to thank you guys all for inspiring me to want to do better and be better through this journey.
So proud of you.
Thank you for putting this together, Sky.
Yay.
This has been awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome.
You're doing the real heavy lifting here.
Well, I think we could have this conversation for hours, but we can't bore our listeners. We can't, bore the followers. So before we sign off, do any of you guys have anything left to say? Why don't you go through and I'll say your name. Tell our listeners where to find you, where they can follow you on social media and podcasts and whatever. I want to get all of that from you guys before we end today. So let's start with you, Kristen.
Okay, I was just looking on my face. I'm like, am I at underscore? I'm like, nope, there's no underscore. Okay. So yes, Global Kristen. I do most of my postings on my Facebook page right now. You can look up Kristen Aguirre, Aguirre, or just Global Kristen, and I should pop up. And I also post on Instagram. That one I do believe is at global_Kristen. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for holding this space and for doing this. It's so sacred to talk about this topic and to connect with all of you guys. So I'm really grateful to be here. And yeah, that's where you can find me. The name of the signature program that I built is called Mission Impossible. And I'm just super excited about it. And I'm just really hoping to touch more lives out there. So if you know anyone that you think can connect with me or my energy, please send them my way. I would love to help out.
Awesome. Will do. Thanks, Kristen. And thanks for coming today again. We really appreciate you. How about you, Johnny?
Sure. Yeah. So, yes, my name is Johnny. If you're looking for me on the internet, it's just here's Johnny Nava. Pretty much anywhere. And my last name is NAVA. Podcast is called Don't Panic, We're All Going to Die. And yeah, talk about stoicism, existential problems, help you solve your depression, maybe, or at least talk about mine sometimes. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate you inviting me, and I enjoyed hearing from the rest of you, too. I definitely learned a lot in this conversation. I appreciate that you guys are spending your time, helping promote mental health, because it is such an important thing. So really appreciate all you guys.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Johnny. All right, Dr. H. I'm just going to go in an order on the screen here.
Fair. First, thanks, guys. Thanks, Ryan. I had so much fun in our last conversation, man. I couldn't pass up another opportunity to come chat with some really cool people. I've learned a lot. Being on the medical side, you see things in one direction. I mean, like a science-driven mind, and seeing more people that have some great things to share with people, man, it's really cool to see. You can find me in socials at Dr. Mix-a-Lot.
Me too.
Anywhere. Appreciate it. Yeah. I mix drugs and I mix podcasts. I mean, it makes sense, right? But yeah, I have a sports pharmacy podcast. I have a book coming out pretty soon called the 7 Pillars of Wellness that I'm finishing it up now. And yeah, man, it's good to see you guys.
Oh,
appreciate it. Appreciate that.
Awesome. We'll have to have you on when you release it. Yeah. All right, Coach Bruce.
Yes. Okay, it's my turn. So I too am on the Facebook. You can find me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube mostly. My YouTube is at Authentic Bruce, and my Instagram and Facebook is at Authentic Identity Management. I'm thinking about changing it just to Coach Bruce. Like I'm thinking about going that way because I'm trying to focus more on just the coaching and less on the workshop stuff that I used to do. So for one, I want to thank you guys so much for, like Kristen said, creating the space that you guys do and having this conversation because it's so important. I really enjoy talking about all this stuff so much. I'm a total geek about personal growth and wellness, so I'm glad to be on. I, too, have created a course. It is specifically created for ADHD dads to re-engage with passion and purpose in their lives. It is not just for ADHD dads. It is just the most best for ADHD dads because that's what I am, and that's where I struggled the most, and that's where my growth came from. So I know that if you're an ADHD dad who is struggling to engage with passion and purpose, this will definitely help you. And that's at authenticidentitymanagement.com/9steps-special offer. And it is, I just cut the price to like $30 because I just want people to be able to get it. I'm not trying to get rich in this game. I really just want to increase my reach and help as many people as possible. And that's why I'm also giving away my How to Life workbook completely free. And you can get that on also at authenticidentitymanagement.com. And that is /free book. And those are the main places to find me. The workbook is really the main thing I rely on to help people kind of focus in, decide what's important to them, so then we can strategize and make their lives what they want it to look like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dylan, we're going to skip over you for a second, and we're going to go to Eric first.
Whatever, Dylan. Cold, man. Yeah, that's so messed up. You can find me on social media at nowhere. I don't do it because it's not good for my mental health. So if you want to get connected with me, please, by all means, go to mantherapy.org. Go to the Connect With Us team. That goes directly to me. My email is eric@gritdigitalhealth.com. Also, for the consulting business, I am eric@ericjonesconsulting.com. I do military competency consulting as well as workplace mental health consulting programs. So feel free to contact with me directly. Feel free to link that in the chat. And definitely check out Man Therapy.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again, Eric Jones. And finally, Dylan.
I'm glad you put me last because I was going to feel bad because Eric kind of got kicked out because of his sewage situation. Yeah, so thank you. No, I'm Dylan Faulkner. I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I have a consulting company called Stitch Tech, which stands for Technology Education Consulting. And it's my goal here to help Sky see this come to fruition, this awesome dream of men's mental health and just mental health and depression and all this education work is amazing. I do the website and the marketing. If you want to get in contact with me personally, you'll have to go to heymanitsokay.com. You can find me on his website. So go through his website. You can see me in the footer and one of the sponsors as well. I would love for you guys to send me these links and information directly, and I can put it on the website for heymanitsokay.com as well. So all this information, hopefully I can put that on the website for anyone to find easily and any future guest stars. But yeah, it's been an honor to actually talk to you guys directly. A pleasure to be involved in this myself. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. And Ryan, finally, my co-host, my co-host who's been with me this entire season through all these episodes. We're at the end of our first season together, end of season 2. Anything you want to say to our listeners before we wrap up the season?
This has just been an absolute pleasure. I had no idea kind of what we were going to embark on when we started this journey. And the guests have really been my absolute favorite part. I mean, I've had all of you guys, I've had wonderful conversations with all of you, learned something. I think it's just so cool how everybody has, their own niche. And really in mental health, it kind of takes a village. And you guys are sort of the pillars of that community. So Sky, thank you so much, like I said, for doing most of the heavy lifting. And this has just been an absolute pleasure. And this episode right here is the icing on the cake of, really getting to do this reunion show. Pretty cool. So thank all of you. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And Ryan, it's been such a pleasure to co-host with you this season and to get to know all these awesome guests and to share these stories and to learn so much, from the medical side from you. And I'm really excited to see where we go for season 3 and, some of the new guests that we have, and hopefully some of these guys come back for our next season of Hey Man, It's Okay. But to you listeners, thank you for following with us through this journey. I know it's been a lot of growth, a lot of change, but we're so excited to see where it goes. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media is at Hey Man, It's Okay. Check out our website, heymanitsokay.com. OK is just the letters O and K, not OKAY. But until next season, everybody, it's okay to not be okay. And thanks for joining us.
Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, please.
Yeah, that too.
Helps us out a lot. Okay. Let us know what your favorite points were and what tips and skills have helped you. And hopefully if you gained anything from this podcast, let us know. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, please email us, reach out to us on social media, and I actually monitor most of that. So awesome. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next season. Bye.